I want to go to the government's claim now that the laws that have just passed the Parliament last night will give them the power to stamp out hate groups, particularly Hizb ut-Tahrir. Tony Burke has claimed that the group could be banned within a month, and it must be said they've already scrubbed their online presence in Australia off the internet very quickly as the laws pass the Parliament. Joining me now to discuss this and more, National Affairs Editor at The Australian, Greg Sheridan. Greg, welcome. I think we both can agree how important it is to ban Hizb ut-Tahrir. If we do this, though, what's the practical gain we get here? I mean, is this going to root them out, or will they just rebrand under another name, or perhaps just go underground?
Peter, great to be with you and welcome back. It's great to have you back. Foreign editor I am, not National Affairs editor. Look, I think it's a good thing to ban Hizb ut-Tahrir. They were a radical breakaway from the Muslim Brotherhood. A lot of our friendly nations have banned Hizb ut-Tahrir. They may well just go underground and rebrand, but nonetheless, it's a proper statement from official Australia that their philosophy of hatred and extremism is unacceptable in Australia. I don't mind banning neo-Nazis either. I do think there's a trade-off between the limits of freedom. This is the dilemma a liberal society faces in dealing with the most wickedly illiberal forces. You're forced to put some limits on your freedom. But I don't think it abolishes the hatred that Hizb ut-Tahrir represents. But I think it's a good move as far as it goes.
Yeah, look, I agree with you on the constraints that we must have to defeat the evil that is now in our Western society and taking advantage of all of our Western human rights and philosophies and things. I guess one of the benefits of banning them is the ability to delegitimise funding sources. I've always had a concern that some of the money we pay to Muslim associations, as an example, find their way back into bodies that are as much against us as they ever are supporting Muslim people in Australia.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, it used to be the case years ago when Alexander Downer was a foreign minister that Saudi Arabia could pour money into extremist mosques in Australia, but you couldn't take a Bible into Saudi Arabia. I always thought, well, look, surely we can have simple reciprocity and, control that. So I'm not convinced that we could not possibly have banned Hizb ut-Tahrir already. I think one of the arguments against the new laws is that part of the problem has been a failure to use existing laws with any purpose or strength against the extremists that we know are there already.
All right, talk to me about Greenland. Before we get in the ins and outs of Donald Trump, how fair is it to say that it's an incredibly strategic property and we are, the West broadly, concerned about it not being, I guess, allied clearly enough to a major power? Is that a worry?
Well, no, it's a very important strategic territory. It's a huge piece of land, almost entirely uninhabitable, with a little bit of Arctic ice melting or whatever. There are increased sea routes to the north of Greenland, which both Russia and China are using increasingly. But I must say, Peter, in this case, Trump's position has not one schmick of a justification. Trump does a lot of good things for which I praise him, but when he's bad, he's bloody awful, and he's unspeakable on this issue. Under an existing agreement, the United States has a military base in Greenland and could have as many military bases as it wanted to in Greenland. It used to have dozens of military bases in Greenland. So if the development of sea routes to the north of Greenland mean that it is potentially strategically vulnerable to Russia or China, you could certainly expect NATO nations, including Denmark, to place some more military resources there. But if the United States feels this is a priority, it can place all the resources there it wants to right now. It can do anything it likes for missile defence,
okay, Greg, then why does
submarine warfare.
So why the chest beating? Why does he say that they must buy it, they must own it, as if to say that the current arrangements are not sufficient. What's the argument there?
Well, I think the benign interpretation is that it's just mad Trump bluster to give himself negotiating leverage before a negotiation with the Europeans, from which he will presumably want, even better economic access. Although there's a very interesting piece in Foreign Affairs last week, which outlined a way that the United States could get Greenland if they wanted to, just by massive investment. They could do a Belt and Roads thing with Greenland, the sort of thing that China does. And the Danes would cooperate with them in economic development and all the rest of it. But Peter, although I'm reluctant generally to get into psychobabble about Trump, I think this really emerges more out of two things. One, he's having a bit of trouble keeping his MAGA base together for all his international adventures. So this is an international adventure which MAGA will like because it increases US territory. And two, I think he has a psychological compulsion to be somebody like, Thomas Jefferson, who did the Louisiana Purchase, or was it Johnson who did the Alaska Purchase, or Teddy Roosevelt, under whom the US acquired Puerto Rico and so on. Now, you could do that in the 19th century as a result of, the Spanish-American War. The US took over Spanish colonies and so on. But there's absolutely no justification today for saying we're going to march into a democratic ally which has never done one single thing against us and with whom we have a formal military alliance and in whose territory we have a military base, and take it over just because we decided to do that. I mean, a week ago I was praising Trump for his actions on Gaza, Iran and Venezuela, but I got to be honest with you, this week I think is peak bad Trump. This is madness. And I think in the end he won't do it. He says a lot of crazy things, and then when they're obviously not working, he just moves on to something else. But you can't be sure. I mean, that text he sent to the Norwegian Prime Minister, dear Jonas, you didn't give me the Nobel Peace Prize, so now I don't have to worry about peace.
But it was real, yes?
Yeah.
Hey, just quickly, I've got to go, but I want a quick... It is demented. I agree with you on that one. I want a quick comment from you on Iran. Are we seeing regime change happening?
It's possible. I think so far the regime has held together fairly well. The security agencies are still willing to keep killing their own citizens, and it's hard to turn over a dictator when they're willing to do that. But here's something Trump has done which is consequential. He's moved an aircraft carrier battle group to the Middle East. That gives him very powerful military options against Iran. I think should the demonstrations break out again, or should there be a casus belli, the US could take action, and that could be enough to topple the regime. I'm not saying it will happen, but it's possible.
We'll watch this space, Greg. Thank you.